Hello again, and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave, and this is another one of those interview, discussion, collaboration type videos that I do every so often. Recently I had the chance to sit down and have a chat over Skype with Matt from Monty's Guitars, talking about sort of care and feeding of your instrument, looking after it, modifications, and a little bit about looking after yourself as well. Bit of a mixed bag, but hopefully you'll find it interesting. Here we go. Okay, so today for this PhatPhish interview, collaboration, whatever we want to call it, I'm delighted to be joined from his personal isolation bunker, Matt from Monty's Guitars. So, Matt, hi, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, man, I'm good.
Good.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to have a bit of a chat with me today. Obviously, I've been following you online. I think I first discovered Monty's from Crimson Guitars videos, because I've followed Ben Crow for years, and I think he was doing a bit of
he's a good guy.
Pickups. I thought, oh, that looks interesting. But for anybody who doesn't know you, doesn't know Monty's, can you give us the elevator pitch of Monty's?
The elevator pitch. Oh, okay. Monty's is kind of like a one-stop shop for anything to do with keeping a guitar in order, modding it. Basically it. It started off as just me doing repairs and things, and then I developed it and turned it into kind of a product-led brand now. We do 90% of our business is that we make pickups, pedals, guitar care stuff, anything kind of guitar-y wise. So yeah. There's a rather long, lengthy one, but it's sort of in a rather big nutshell. That's kind of us.
Yeah, and you're based down in?
We're in Acton, West London.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I thought we'd just talk a little bit about why people need to look after their guitars, because I think people spend a lot of time obsessing about what's the latest model, different features, but they don't always concentrate so much on, well, what do I need to do to keep this instrument healthy? I mean, the amount of students I've had who've seriously asked me the questions, how rusty do my strings need to be before they need changing? You know, that sort of thing. Well, when they're crinkle cut, it's time to change them. So, I guess the most basic thing is a string change. I guess is the most fundamental care and feeding of your instrument.
Yeah,
anyone should be able to do themselves. Then it gets more towards like working on the instrument. I guess is the next thing along the line, like the setup.
Yeah. But I think basically a guitar needs to be balanced properly with everything. I mean, even if you've got brand new strings on your guitar and they can't vibrate as they should do because something's a bit low or too high or just it's got a problem with it, it's never gonna play comfortably. It's never gonna sound great. Yeah, I mean, it is all about balance. Once you can get a really bog standard, cheap out of the box, sort of Chinese Squire or something like that, set them up, and they can actually sound fantastic, because everything is allowed to breathe as it should do. But yeah, I mean, yeah, balance. Once you've got it balanced, then you can start modding and doing all the other little bits. Yeah.
Yeah, so if I brought one of my guitars to you and said, like, I'm going to go and do some recording, I want this to be in the best of health. Mm-hmm. What sort of things do we look at when we do a setup? Because you said there's all these things that need to be in balance. So I guess it's you fix one thing and it breaks something else. So what's the balancing act that we go through in a setup?
If you're going into record, especially, I mean, first thing I'd look at is the frets. You want them to be nice and round. As soon as they start wearing, they kind of flatten out, and if you imagine the intonation point smack in the middle of that fret, so if it's flattening out, not only are you shifting it slightly, you're also, the strings hitting the back edge of it and then fluttering across it, admittedly a tiny bit of metal, but it's still something that's going to deaden it. So if there was wear, I'd recommend that you had a fret dress done, so level all those off, reprofile them, polish them up. Then it would be, you look at the truss rods to make sure that that's got enough relief to allow the strings to vibrate as they should do up and down the neck. And then you look at the nut, so at the headstock ends, and make sure that's at its optimum. Too low and you'll get sitaring and buzzing and stuff. Too high, and again you'll be effectively bending the string as you pull it towards the fret. So you want that to be at its optimum. So again, all the intonation is sorted out, and then it's your bridge saddles and the intonation. So all those adjustments. Then obviously you'd have a look through, making sure your electrics are fine and that kind of thing, and everything's kind of just working as it should. But fundamentally, as long as your frets are in good condition, and although the truss rod, the nut, and the bridge are all balanced, you'll be laughing.
Yeah, because the truss rod, I think, is the one that scares most people, because you hear all these things. If you over tighten it, you will warp the neck. It's permanent damage, and people tend to be a bit scared of it. And I remember the first time I turned a truss rod, that crack. It was the first time it had moved since it's left the factory. It was like, I've just broken something expensive.
Yeah. It's I mean, it is kind of daunting, but I personally have never broken a truss rod yet, and I've been doing this for 20 years. I only know one person who has, and that wasn't their fault. It was because it was rusty, and it was a really old guitar that'd been like left in a barn or something. But it is a scary thing. But as long as you, with any of these things, as long as you do small measured adjustments, I mean, with the truss rod, I'd say do it like an eighth to a quarter of a turn each time. It will tell you before it breaks. Typically, you'll get this kind of, it won't sound like that first fresh crack, but it's kind of like, it gets a little bit screechy. But yeah, it's all of these things, as long as you measure the amount you're turning something or adjusting something, so you can always take it back to where it was at the beginning, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, and so you mentioned there about, like, you know, guitars have been left in the barn. These are sort of like still sort of semi-living instruments. Like, sometimes the wood kind of forgets it hasn't been built into a guitar, and it wants to move.
Yes.
And it's quite controversial, is the idea of, like, if you've got a rosewood fingerboard, putting lemon oil onto it. Some people say that's heresy and you should never do that. But it's instrument food that you do. It's like it nourishes and
You need to keep the wood conditioned. I mean, lemon oil isn't. Well, it's not lemon oil. Like a pure stuff. Isn't it? It's just it's mineral oil, a bit of naphtha or lighter fluidy kind of material, fluid, and some sort of scent. So lemon oil actually works better as a cleaner. So you can use that, put that on the neck, and we use like old toothbrushes, because then you can get right into where the frets are and get all that gunk out. And yeah, admittedly, the mineral oil does go into the wood and conditions it, but it's quite a temporary thing. So I started using waxes about 5 years ago, after speaking to an artist friend of mine who deals with wood and stuff, and we use it at that time. We were using lemon oil and then finishing the wax on top, so it kind of keeps all the oils in as well. But then we changed. Then I developed the instrument foods stuff, which has all of that in it. So you can kind of just clean. We clean the frets and the board down with lighter fluid itself, which really great at getting all the gunk out, but dries the wood. So then you can replenish it and keep it nice and healthy, which is really cool. Really cool, and it brings out a wax as opposed to an oil brings out the grain a lot more. It's, you know, makes guitars prettier to look at, you know, which is always nice. But with the instrument food, I literally just tried a load of recipes. I bought myself a cauldron, so I make it in the workshop of this little cauldron thing with a tap on the side of it. It's like an electric cauldron, and so you put all the stuff in there, and then just turn this tap on, and it goes, it comes out. But yeah, it's I kind of made a decision about 2 years ago to literally just kind of run with any crazy idea I have, and instrument food was one of them. But yeah, it's important to keep the wood nourished and stuff, because they don't. The thing is also, they don't dry the woods out properly. Typically, in most factories. So when you get a new guitar, and I don't know if you've had it, where you're in the shop, it's fine, or when you first get it, it's fine, and then a month to 6 months later, you notice that all the fret ends are kind of sticking out and things shift around, and that's that's something a lot of people don't realise is when you buy a new guitar, it's not necessarily, it's not set up usually, but also the wood does move around. That's why if you get it like acoustics, typically you'll get the necks will, when they shrink a little bit, you'll get this bump where the neck joins the body, because there's a big old lump of wood there, and then all the other areas is not so much, or it's different amounts. So you get these typical kind of things happening as guitars dry out and settle down. But yeah, it's a normal thing that people don't really realise.
And I suppose something like a truss rod adjustment, if I've got the confidence, I can do at home. But something, once you're getting into fretwork and files, that's something that's probably best, unless you've done it before, it's best left to the technician, because that's your interface to the guitar, that's your fretting hands interface, and you don't want to be doing a half-baked job of that.
No, you don't. Everyone's got to start somewhere. So as long as you're doing it on a guitar that you don't mind, messing up,
Yeah.
then do that. Or you mean there's quite a few guys that do like little courses and stuff. You did want to learn those things. There's lots of stuff on YouTube, obviously, but it's always nice to be in the room with someone when you're doing something like that for the first time.
Yeah, because do you still do the tutorial sessions where people will come down and just like have a sacrificial neck and just learn the trade?
Yeah. We still do those. Things have been so really crazy busy, so we've had to pull back on those, and obviously now nobody can do anything. But yeah, it's still something I really enjoy doing. And it's nice to see guys that they come in and they've fiddled around with stuff before, but not done anything like fret dressing or ripping the guts out of their guitar and rewiring it and getting people to do stuff that they walk away with a smile on their face. It's good.
Yeah. So you're kind of moving on then, just saying like the idea of like ripping the guts out of your guitar. Guitars, I tend to think there's certain parallels with cars, that you get them and you can kind of customise them, tastefully or untastefully, like cars. But they are just a series of component parts.
Yeah.
Like pickup swaps and so on. So what's the typical sort of thing that you see coming through the workshop? People saying like, I've got this guitar, but I need something else. I guess pickups is that where you would normally start with?
Yeah, we always, as I said before, we always make sure that everyone's, because a lot of the time we'll get the guys coming in, they'll be like, I want, upgraded pickups, hardware, all this and that and the other, and the guitar isn't balanced. So it's pointless spending all that money, because that can run into thousands of pounds if the guitar itself isn't balanced. So we always push people to get that first, and then you can kind of start to tinker around with it. Typically I would start with pickups and electronics, because that's the thing that turns the physical movement of your string into your start of your signal. So it's really, really important. And then hardware makes a difference. Even the way the hardware is set up makes a difference. Lots of people there was a time when everybody wanted locking everything, and then it went all back to vintage everything, and now it's kind of a splattering of both. There's lots of people out there making some really cool things. So I love modifying stuff. But when I was setting up Monty, has been part of the whole thing. I was playing a video game called BioShock, watching Boardwalk Empire, like Harry Potter and that kind of things, and I was obsessed with this. There was a custom bike building thing on some sort of channel somewhere, and it was just guys taking like the old cafe racers, ripping them apart and modifying them, and I did see lots of similarities with what we do with that kind of industry. It's fun to tinker with stuff, taking something and falling in love with it again, because if a guitar's not speaking to you, you're not going to play it, and if you can get it back so it's hitting the spots that you want to hit, it's a good thing.
Yeah, because I remember the first proper guitar mod I had an old Squier with just the Strat trem. It was made in Japan Squier.
Yeah.
First guitars, and it was the time where everybody wanted locking everything. So it was a very early Mark II Floyd, because I wanted the tuning stability. I wanted to be able to do Van Halen stuff. But the thing that blew me away was there's so much more metal and mass and suddenly sonically it was a better guitar. Never mind the whammy effects.
Yeah,
And you just realise just something like replacing a bridge block can have a big change on the guitar, and it's not just about the voice of the pickups. It's a system. The pickups are part of it, but I think, do we do tone wood? Do we risk angering 90% of the
tone wood.
of the internet and say, is tone wood a thing?
Tone wood. I mean, I firmly believe everything makes a difference. You know, if you're going to change one thing, I mean, again, it could be a tiny, tiny amount that, I mean, your ear might not even pick it up, but it's all of those things. The way the wood vibrates, the amount of, as you said, metal you've got in there, anything that is going to affect how the string moves slightly is going to have an effect on what the pickups see, and then they're going to spit out whatever that is. So yeah, everything makes a difference. I mean, you can't say you know, this, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, tone woods, more mass on the. I mean, this is why people change blocks and stuff on Strats and things. And I mean, I've mucked around with different materials. So I had a it was a Tele Strat hybrid thing that I made myself, and had a 6-screw vintage style Strat trem on it, and came with a steel block. And this is when I was working with a guy called Charlie Chandler, and he had an aluminium block which was a lot lighter, and I didn't really care necessarily about the sound at that point. I just wanted it to be really light, and it kind of made, when I swapped the blocks over, it made the guitar a little bit more bright as well. I mean, I don't know the science about it, but it did that thing. So yeah, everything makes a difference.
Yeah. So I think sometimes people expect a bigger change. They say, okay, well, you know, guitar that's made out of mahogany versus a guitar that's made out of ash. It's a subtle EQ, or it's like having a tiny bit of compression on your signal. It's not like going from clean to standing on a DS1 distortion pedal. Levels of change. And I think people say, well, I can't hear a difference. Well, you're probably not listening carefully, or you've been playing next to a drummer for 10 years and you're losing your high end.
Yeah, no, but there's no. Also, with that kind of stuff, I mean, the guitars will sound different that are made out of the same tree. You know, there's a different piece of wood that's being cut maybe in a different way, and all the tubes that make up the wood are running in a different different directions or something. It's a wormhole that is very easy to get slide down into. But it's not a pleasant place to be.
Yeah. I suppose the important thing is how the guitar works for you, and being able to listen to it and say, "Well, I'm hearing this," because I was watching that Instagram post you put on. I think it was just this morning about. I hadn't realised about how you wind a pickup. This is where the top end goes. Because right, now I understand. It's actually fairly basic physics. But when you explain it, if I can play my guitar, think. I'm not getting enough treble. I need to come to someone like you and say, I need these pickups wound but taller or narrower or whatever they need to be. But being able to hear what's wrong with the guitar to explain to somebody what you need changed.
Yeah, and trying to explain sound is a hideous thing, isn't it? I mean, it's like the amount of weird, flouncy words I've used to try and describe what I'm after is crazy. But with the pickup thing, I mean, when you're developing something, it goes with most things. I mean, I like to, when I'm doing the pickups, I'll make something up and put it all together, plumb it in and strum it, and I'll know kind of instantly if I've got it right or not. It's one of those kind of gut things where you just have to you just have to go with your instincts. I think you're only going to make great or make something great if you love it yourself. It's like the whole comedian thing of if they write jokes that make themselves laugh. Do you know what I mean? So there's always certain things that you're listening to, but it's which is why all my pickups are kind of voiced they're not the same obviously, but there are similar characteristics that go through it, which is the big bugbear for me when I was playing live, was just being heard, it's clarity and sitting in the mix right. especially, I mean, I was battling with a bass player keyboards, a cello at one time, and all that kind of stuff. And it's without, especially as noise regulations and everything coming down, if you can cut through on a frequency level, then you're laughing. You're not having to blast your amp and getting the sound guy telling you off. We've all had that. So it's really cool. And but people sometimes kind of dismiss it. There's all these tiny little changes, but it all adds together. And as you said, I mean, it's not massive differences, but put them all together, and then you kind of got this thing. But I mean that's the single coil. Well, it's that magnetic field and how the core like works with it. It's very interesting, mind-boggling, but really, really interesting.
Because I was really interested. Was it last year when you did the Danish Pete pickups? He's got the purple telly. If anybody hasn't seen Danish Pete on the Andertons channel, go and watch him. But he's got this purple custom shop Strat, then got the Squire, like Peter Honore signature, and you said, yeah, well, I'll just do you some pickups. I thought, the fact you can just hear that and suddenly think, well, it's a little bit of magnet, it's some winding, it's this diameter wire. I thought the way you can just come in, like, okay, I know the recipe to be able to like replicate that tone.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that are kind of, with that, doing that kind of project are really straightforward. I mean, you can take resistance readings and all the magnets and the other readings that you can. But it's also with that. I mean, that pickup, the pickups in there were kind of weird. they're weird. So it's a lot of, you basically take the measurements that you can and then kind of muck about with it a little bit. But it was meant to be, when he had been told that it was a no caster in the bridge and a twisted telly in the neck, but the magnet stagger was all wrong for the bridge, and it was really squat, and in fact it was kind of wonky on one side, so the core look, I can't even speak. The coil was kind of a bit of a weird shape, and the neck wasn't a full twisted telly. It's kind of like an underwound thing, slightly taller. So, I mean, I think because that purple guitar was made for, it's like the Music Messe or NAMM or one of those shows, and they had 3 of them, and they were kind of just sort of put together specially for that. So I think those were one of those that kind of like just what we got on the bench, kind of just shove them in. But they sound great. They sound really cool, and obviously with Pete's fingers, I mean, he's a tasteful player. Boy. But yeah, I mean, so it's really fun. I've done quite a few of those kind of projects. I did one for Pete Townsend, where we did his old tech, a guy called Alan Rogan. Sorry, he sadly passed away end of last year. He's been working with Pete since, God, as long as you can imagine. Also, he teched for Ronnie Woods, Keith Richards, AC/DC. I mean, the stories that man had was just amazing. And he came to me because Pete was having this Strat put together, and he wanted mini humbuckers on it. And Alan had a set of mini humbuckers that Pete really, really liked, and they just wanted to kind of reverse engineer those. So I went over and again took all the readings and stuff, made them up, sent a few sets back and forth, and those are the ones he's got a grey Strat with the piezo system and everything, and there's a green one with them on. But it's doing those jobs are really fun. You get to make a lot of noise. Can be frustrating at sometimes, but when things don't go to plan. But we kind of just about got our process down finally.
Because I guess when you're trying to replicate these classic vintage pickups, like everybody wants a PAF. I want a PAF like out there is in a 59 burst.
Yeah.
But those back in the day were not made on computer controlled equipment with high QC parts. There'd be so much variance. There is no, this is the classic PAF. What we hear is like an average of the hundreds that we've heard over the years.
Yeah. I mean, I really landed on my feet when I started doing the whole teching thing, and I started off in a workshop which at the time was, I mean, it was the best in the country. I think they had pretty much the best techs. There's a guy called Bill Puplet, bar him, I think, maybe a couple of others. There was this group of guys that were just sort of leading the way, and we had, also because of where it was situated, we had all of these guys, like the old rockers and lots of collectors and those kind of people with very nice stuff coming in. So from day dot, I got to got my hands on 54 Strats, and in fact we had Dave Gilmore's Strat, which was that the 0001, the gold thing. They had that in, and the black one, but loads of I was just absolutely spoiled rotten. But I mean, the good thing about that is I got my hands on and my ears on a lot of old stuff. So yeah, I mean, some you'd see them and they just look like an old guitar. Some would sound absolutely amazing. Some would sound just like a normal guitar, and some would sound complete toilet. So they are really varied, and they weren't thinking about it. It's like, we're going to make this best sounding thing. It's just, we're going to make this thing. And I mean, the Gibson Winder was, I think that some of the gearing for the counters was made with cardboard and various bits like that. So they didn't work half the time. And then if you imagine, someone gets a bit distracted, leaves it on for a couple of a bit longer or whatever, or voltage is changing. It's loads of variables, but again, you just have to. The ones that I heard, like the PAFs, for example, the ones that I heard that kind of spoke to me and like that I'd start taking things apart and seeing a certain sort of trend through those, and it was sort of basically sort of reverse engineering that what you could see. So yeah, I was just very lucky.
So, good few years in the business. What have you got? Any sort of like memorable like jobs that you've had in the past? Because I'm spectacularly bad DIY that you've had to salvage, or somebody stick a Bigsby on an acoustic sort of levels of insanity.
I had there's been quite a few, but one of the memorable ones is this guy came in. He'd been a naughty boy and cheated on his wife, and she'd scribbled something very rude across the front of it, but really, really deep. So we had to strip it all back, fill it in, and then respray it and stuff. It was very funny. He learned a lesson. Quite early on. I had Elvis Costello's warehouse with all his stuff got flooded. So when I was at Chandler's, we had all of that everything came in. It was these random, incredible guitars just hanging up, drying out. And in fact, it's the best P90s I've ever played was in that. He had a Gibson, what's it called? Like 175 thing, but without the cutaway. And it'd been painted very badly, like a mushy pea green on the front and then a dark kind of Sherwood green on the outside. But it sounded bonkers. I mean, it was a massive jazz hollow body thing, but the clarity it had and this like bloom around the note and all that kind of stuff, it was just amazing. I kind of hope that they didn't pick that one up. Yeah. But that's what now is our or was our J90, now the 54, like our original series one. So there was that. What else we had? I've had. Okay, so again, this Alan Rogan guy brought in a stereo 1950. I can't remember the year, but a stereo White Falcon. So you had It's my dog still attacking me. And it was just like the best playing experience ever. I had it in our like got a little sort of office / demo room thing. I had a Lazy J20 on one side and my JMI AC15 on the other, and it was like heaven, being surrounded by this stuff. And yeah, stereo is definitely the way to go. But that was fantastic. What else have we done? There's loads, but when somebody asks you, it's just like your brain will... I got to work on George Harrison's mandolin. That was pretty cool. He has this electric mandolin which his son now uses, and the pickup had gone down, so we had to rewind that. And I've got a sort of framed thing with loads of fender coils of pickups that I've rewound. Which looks like a box of moustaches, but it's actually, it's really handy because you can see exactly how what the potting technique was like, and also you can match color and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that was a good one. But actually a proper bucket list thing for me was when we had randomly I got a text message on like a Sunday, and it was it just says, "Hi Matt, this is Ed O'Brien from Radiohead. I've been given your number and want to come over and talk about pickups." I was just like, I honestly thought it was a mate having me on. So I've been a Radiohead fan for as long as I can remember, and and he came in and he had this Les Paul because he was just starting to record the album that he's just released, or just started touring before this whole thing came down. But he kind of came in. I met him out the back of the car park and walked him all through the building. But then I had a guy waiting for a job that was on my bench right then in the workshop, and then there was another guy who came in to pick some stuff up, and then the phone wouldn't stop going off. So I was there trying to do everything and talk to him, and he was like, "Do you know what? Just you'll know what I want. It's fine. I'll go and leave you." I was just like, "Oh no!" But when he came back to pick it up, we had a long chat. It was really nice, and he actually bought my AC15 off me, the one which I was just talking about not so long ago. But yeah, so that's a proper bucket list one. Everything else has kind of escaped me right now.
Yeah. I'm kind of conscious on time. I don't want to take up your whole afternoon. So before we finish, we can kind of go off piste slightly, because we're recording this in the middle of a very, very strange and troubling time, for which I have absolutely no frame of reference for how I'm supposed to feel or behave. And I know, as well as being a bit of a whiz with the guitars, you're also a real advocate of mental health awareness and talking about it. So do you want to talk a little bit about the whole "We Got You" thing, and like your philosophy on where we should be with talking about things?
I think, I've suffered with like sort of depression, anxiety, most of my life. I've had various kind of like eating disorders and addictions and various things, and nothing really helped me get through it until a few years ago. I was in literally like the lowest I've ever been, to the point where my wife, who's like the most supportive person, she has to put up with me. It's just like I said, I don't know what to do. You got to see somebody, and I hadn't been to see. I'd done the typical bloke thing. I hadn't said anything to anybody about it. I've just been a miserable git, and just distancing myself and not speaking at all. The way I speak now, if you'd met me like 4 or 5 years ago, completely different. I'd be panic attacks, all that kind of stuff. And so I went to see my local doctor, who then put me in touch with like various therapists and stuff, but nothing helped more than just talking. I realized that people, you don't need to say a million things, but just to tell people that you're feeling a bit rubbish or you're having an off day, and dealing with those niggles. All of us have had them, those like kind of niggles at the back of your head where it's something you've done in the past that keeps popping up and you just go, oh, and that makes you actually physically feel terrible, which then impacts your mental health, and then that impacts on what's going around you. So it's just like getting rid of all of those and stuff. I mean, for me, it was this is like donkeys years ago. I was at a party when I'm like a teenager, and I kind of got a bit. I was very drunk and treated a girl that I knew and had known for a while, not in the way that I would have wanted to. That's what I felt anyway, and so that was one of the things that kept bubbling up, And I got, as I was sort of sorting myself out, one of the things was I found her on Facebook and just sent her a message saying, look, I'm really, I hope you're okay and blah blah blah. I'm really sorry. I was an absolute douche. And I kind of left it like that. I felt better just having messaged it, but thought nothing of it. And then I got a message from her like 2 weeks later, replied to it. She said, what the hell are you talking about? You were absolutely fine. It's just like all that time, I've been beating myself up about that one thing along with others. And so getting all that stuff off your chest, talking to people, because people actually, once you've started the conversation, it's just a conversation. It's like starting the conversation is the most awkward thing ever. And I've wanted to do something. It's like legacy stuff. It's like when I go, I want to have left a positive impact on, on as many people's lives as I can do. So, and as much as good guitar tone helps, I mean, you're not gonna want to play the guitar if your head's not right. So, with a friend of mine, a guy called Alex Ebden, we started We've Got You, which is, it's in a bit of flux at the minute. We're trying to figure out how to make it work. Monty's is really busy and he's really busy, so it's just trying to, I forgot how hard a business startup is. But the theory behind it is it's just about creating a safe space for people to talk about it. So if you walk down the street and you see a kid with a backpack with our little hashtag logo on it, and you know what that means, that they may know or have been through something. And like with the same with the t-shirts, hats, you could see like Lady Farquhar with a We've Got You scarf or something, I don't know, down the line. Or maybe it could be something, we don't know, but that's the general premise, is I want to just get the conversation going and keep it going. Men especially, we're terrible at talking about stuff. Women are 4 times more likely to get diagnosed with a mental health condition than a bloke is, and that's because they are more open about it and more willing to speak to their doctor about it and get help. But blokes are, is it twice? 2 or 3 times more likely to kill themselves, So we've got to do something about it. And the more open we can be, I'm like a speck. But if we can kind of normalise this, and every little speck normalises it, then it becomes a pretty big speck. And then you could end up having a whole freaking beach full of specks.
Yeah, because I remember a few years ago, things like home and work and everything was getting on top of me. And I was starting to get stressed and depressed and anxious and stuff. And my other half said, look, you need to go and see a doctor. And I came out, and you think, I feel better. He's not giving me any exercises to try. He's not giving me any pills or anything. But I feel better just for having talk, because I think you share it. You're not bottling it up, and somebody's making sympathetic noises, and you do just feel better, like you say, for having that conversation. Something we need to be more open about.
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing you can do, really, and it's one of the easiest things. Although sometimes when you're feeling really dark, you can't talk, but even just knowing that there are people out there that are going through the same thing, you're not on your own, and people generally people are nice. There are some not very nice people, and they always have the loudest mouths. But generally people are nice and care, and it's just letting getting that out there. The world needs more of that stuff, especially with social media and all that kind of thing, where you're constantly throwing other people's the good side of their life. I mean, it's like on our like Insta and Facebook and stuff, we try and show both the good and the bad, you know. So my dog's ripping a box to pieces. It's a noisy old thing. And yeah, so you've got to show balance. Again, it comes back to balance. This is important in your guitar setup as it is in your life. So there you go.
Yeah, because as we're recording this now, that we're coming up to the end of like week 3 of official lockdown, but probably a week or so before that, I wasn't getting out. I don't think anybody's been getting out as much as they could have done. And I'm not saying it's getting on top of me, but it's a weird sort of feeling. But there's a couple of times the last week or so, I've just had a WhatsApp message or a text message from a random person in me contacts listing. Hope you're all right. How you doing? Oh yeah, I'm kind of okay. But just knowing that there's somebody else out there, like, yeah, I need to send a couple of WhatsApp messages to a couple of random people to say, like, so are you okay? Just
yeah. I mean, it's nice. I mean, and also, I mean, I'm terrible for keeping in contact with people. I've got so much stuff going on all the time that it's not that I don't want to. It's just I kind of forget to. Before I know it, it's kind of, you know, started at sort of 5 a.m, and I'm putting the kids to bed and I'm knackered. So sitting on the phone is not something I'm good at. But I mean, I think there's some of the positive things to come out of this situation. Obviously, it's a hideous situation. There's lots of people dying, and that is terrible. But it's making us communicate more. I've spoken to loads of my family. We don't talk at all. You know, not because we don't like each other, but you know, it's even my cousin in Australia just randomly phoned me up, and people are doing that more now. And I think it's going to be really interesting how we're spat out the other side of this. I really hope it's kind of a bit of a reset for everybody, and we can actually focus on more of the important stuff. You know, and spending time with your family, as much time as we are all now, is I mean, it's going to have ups and downs, man. but I think it's all a good thing. Learning how to, again, it's communication and being with people and just being nice.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I'm conscious we're kind of coming up to time, so just kind of wrap up. Do you want to do any gratuitous self-promotion, websites, social media things you want to give a plug for before we sign off?
Well, yeah. Even you can come check us at montysguitars.com, or we've got an Instagram account, a Facebook account, a YouTube one, which we're working on. And you've got we're actually about to launch our new signature set with a guy called Bill Steer from Carcass, and that's literally, I think it's live on the website now, I think. But yeah, it's getting demos now. It's going to be a bit tricky. But yeah, really excited about that, because he's one of the best guitarists out there, man. He's a monster, especially in the rock world. But yeah, so I think that's about all the self-indulgence I want to do.
Okay, that's great. Thanks again for sharing some of your afternoon with me.
All good, man.
I just want to do something kind of positive on this. So thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and
you too.
All the best to you, and was it George who helped set this up?
Yeah, George is. But basically, I'm terrible at communication and emails and everything, and George is really good at it, and he also beats me up when I don't do things right. So yeah, he is the person who keeps me on track, along with my wife. So with both of them, I'm in good hands.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining me, Matt. Cheers.
Take care.
Okay, I hope you found that interesting. I'll put links down there in the information section to Monty's Guitars website, their social media and whatnot. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please click the like button down there. If you really enjoyed it and you want to see other videos that are posted on the PhatPhish Guitar Studio YouTube channel, then please click subscribe. You're welcome to leave a comment on the video, but I don't always see comments that are left on YouTube videos. If you've got a specific question that you want to ask me, whether it's about guitars, guitar playing, music theory, anything at all, you're better off going here, filling that form in, sending your question through. That way I'm guaranteed to see it and I can get around to answering your question in a future video. Okay, thanks again to Matt for joining me for that chat. Thanks to you for watching, and I'll see you in another video next time. Bye for now.